On today's show, I have the privilege of doing our first interview on preparing for childbirth. My guest is Charity Person, and she's going to share about her personal experience suffering with a disease of pregnancy called hyperemesis gravidarum, or HG for short. Basically, that means that she had extreme nausea and vomiting through most of her pregnancy. In the interview, she also talks about some things she learned to help deal with the nausea that can also benefit anyone suffering from normal morning sickness or nausea during pregnancy. Welcome to the Preparing for Childbirth podcast, where we'll talk about God's amazing design for childbirth, learn how to prepare for the unknown, handle the pain, and lean into God's character through it all. I'm your host, Jenny Childs. I'm a follower of Jesus, wife, mom, and lover of all things childbirth. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is episode 6. I met my guest today through the Pregnancy Support Center where I started volunteering last August. At some point, I discovered that we had these wonderful nausea bags, we called them, to give out to our clients who were experiencing morning sickness. I was so impressed as I looked through the bags at the care and thoughtfulness put into the contents. Our center director told me that they were donated by someone from her church who had experienced extreme nausea all through her pregnancies and wanted to help others. I decided then that I wanted to meet this lady. We recently met for coffee, and as I listened to her story, I couldn't resist inviting her to come on the podcast. Charity, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to let you properly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your story.
Well, I'm Charity Person, and like you said, I suffered with intense nausea for all 3 of my pregnancies. With my first pregnancy, I actually got down to 90 pounds from 120, so that was pretty intense. But I was actually diagnosed with something called HG, which only happens in up to 3% of pregnancies nowadays.
Okay. So tell us, what does HG stand for?
It stands for hyperemesis gravidarum, and basically it's extremely intense morning sickness. Okay. Sometimes it only lasts for a few months. In my case, I was nauseous until the baby was born.
Wow.
And it can be so intense that you get other malnutrition things because you can't keep anything down. You can't keep liquids or foods down at sometimes. So you might have to be in the hospital for months on IVs and fluids and things like that. Or you could just need to be really careful for a couple months and stay flat on your back and drink slowly and do other things. So there's different levels of it, just like there's different levels of morning sickness. It's just extremely intense morning sickness.
Wow. And so you had this with all of your pregnancies, is that right?
I had some form of it with all of my pregnancies. Okay. I was nauseous the entire time with all of them. Well, not the entire time. My last one, I did not actually get nauseous until I'd been pregnant for 2 months, which was weird.
Wow.
I didn't get morning sickness either. Uh-huh. But then once it started turning into HG, we knew what we were dealing with. So
okay. And how did you deal with that?
Well, with the first one, obviously, I didn't have as much knowledge. In fact, HG wasn't really talked about a lot until even Princess Kate was in the hospital with HG. So it became a lot more known at that point, which I think was right after I had Scotty, like a similar timing.
Okay.
So there weren't even a lot of books about it. Like at first we weren't even told that it was HG, that it was more than intense morning sickness. Because I think a lot of times the midwife or the doctor will just be like, oh, so you're nauseous all the time? Yeah, everybody gets that. They didn't realize like we had to move in with my parents and I was flat on my back and my mom had to take care of me.
Wow.
Even when I didn't have any kids. So it was pretty intense. And then we tried a couple different medications and finally one started making it so that I could keep some things down. But even with that, I still ended up with a kidney infection at one point. But he was over 8 pounds at birth.
Wow.
And we were fine by the end. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's great. So when you were feeling so sick and you couldn't move, tell me some things that the people around you did that were both unhelpful and helpful.
Well, my mom basically just took care of me, and that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And she and I both found one book, and I don't remember what it was called, but it was a book by a lady that had HG,
Mm-hmm.
and she had been a news reporter, I think, so she did a lot of research
Mm-hmm.
after the pregnancy to find out about it, because there wasn't much out there at the time. I looked up on Amazon yesterday, and there's a bunch of books about it now, but so she had some tips and tricks which actually help with morning sickness too, but they would also kind of help a little bit with HG.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead through some of those
Sure.
things?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I absolutely needed medication.
Mm-hmm.
I could not keep hardly liquids down, really. So what ended up working for me, which I know doctors struggle with giving it to you early in the pregnancy, but I think at the point I got it was the time that now they're giving it to people anyways, and my children had no health complications. But the only thing that really touched it for me was Zofran. Okay. There's other medications that can help other people, but they did not touch it at all. Okay. And then for me, there was a lot of things that can even help with morning sickness. I found out later is because everything smells so strongly. If you try to focus on making a lemon or a lavender smell, like air spray or candles or something like that, it would help because you can't smell the food as much.
Okay.
And then also you just need a lot of rest. So even when you start to feel better, don't get up and do things. My husband was really good at being like, no, you can't do anything. You have to lay down. Yes, you feel a little bit better today, but as soon as you start to do things immediately, you're right back down. And then one thing that was kind of odd that we found out, my mom and I, was if you have a variety of tastes. So let's say that you try something sweet, and then the next thing you try should not be sweet. It should be either sour or salty or spicy. And then the next thing should be a different one. And if you can do the same thing with textures as well.
Huh.
And like they'll say for morning sickness, eat tiny little meals all day. And that is very true for HG. Okay. Like tiny little bites all day, really. I bring it to that extent. And then for me, and I was reading the research that this is common for intense morning sickness or HG as well, is drinking extremely cold or extremely hot drinks. Okay. Would help. And then like normal nausea things, ginger can be helpful, mint can be helpful, and citrus, which was a big one for me. And also, when you can't get flat liquids down, try carbonated with a straw as slow as possible. And you really just have to bring the level of living to a different thing in your brain. And it's a season. Like my second pregnancy was much easier just because of the brain setup of, oh, we're in this season of life. Okay, we are at paper plates flat on the couch. We are expecting nothing. And you got to swallow down and you're happy. When you can change your expectations, often that can help. And like the first one, my mom and aunts had pretty bad pregnancies, morning sickness wise, for exactly 4 months. So everybody was telling me, 4 months? You're going to be over this. Just get through 4 months. And it was so untrue for me. And it can be true. Even with HG, it can be true. It just was not for me.
Okay.
At all.
Okay. Wow. So a very difficult season.
Yes.
That you were in, and not knowing if or when it was going to end in that first one made it harder.
Yeah.
So with the next 2 pregnancies, you knew what to expect, more or less.
I did. And with the second pregnancy, actually, it was not nearly as intense as with the first and the last pregnancy. So that was really nice. It probably felt more like typical morning sickness lasting all day and lasting for 8 months.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the difference in morning sickness and HG. What we're calling morning sickness isn't necessarily just feeling sick in the morning. In pregnancy, you can feel nauseous any time of the day, and we refer to that as morning sickness.
Yes.
But it's just feel that nauseous feeling or even throwing up, but not to the extent that it's causing you to lose weight.
Yes. From what I've read, they start diagnosing it as HG once you've lost about 10 pounds. And then also you need to be worried if you can't keep fluids or food down for 12 to 24 hours, definitely let your doctor or midwife know. because that's kind of some of the signs that it could be a lot more severe than morning sickness.
Okay.
And then you're dealing with malnutrition.
Okay. And so it would be important to go ahead and talk to your doctor or midwife if you suspect that your morning sickness is more than just morning sickness.
Yes. And I would say the sign of it is being nausea all day could be morning sickness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not telling you it's HG. The real thing to worry is almost like if you were sick and you couldn't get liquid down for a day or two, you would know to be worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing.
Okay.
That's kind of giving you a sign of, oh, this might be HG.
Mm-hmm. And the sooner you can take care of it or start treating it, then that reduces the severity or can reduce the severity of the symptoms that you feel.
Definitely. I did not lose nearly the same amount of weight with my other 2 pregnancies as I did with the first.
Okay.
And I think that's because I saw the signs and I started taking care of it. I got on the medication,
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. And with the first one, we just didn't really know what it was.
Okay. Right. Right. So I want to come back in just a minute and talk about morning sickness a little more. But before we do that, just thinking about your own story and the difficulty. I don't think you've even touched on how difficult it really was during those pregnancies. You were not functioning.
No.
During that time.
There was about 4 months of me literally being flat on my back. My husband couldn't sit on the couch next to me because he would shake his foot. And that would make me throw up immediately.
Wow.
So it was to that extent
Yeah.
with the first pregnancy and the third pregnancy. The second one was not nearly that bad.
Mm-hmm.
My toddler could be on the couch with me at any time of day.
Mm-hmm.
I would do certain things to make it not be nearly that bad, but also God just didn't have it be nearly as intense with that one.
Talk to me about that. Where in this really difficult season, where did you see God's hand in all of this?
Well, honestly, because I had the option, we had the option to move in with my parents. Like, I do think that kept me and my son alive. My mom taking care of me 24/7. And then when I got pregnant with the second one, it was quite the surprise, the timing of it and everything. My firstborn was a month away from turning 1.
Oh, goodness.
When I found out, and I was like, I was just given this child, and now I'm not going to be a mom to him.
Oh.
Because my husband couldn't even sit on the couch with me for 4 months. So in my head, that's what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one where I did all the things to try and have as few issues as possible. I kept granola bars on my nightstand, and I would eat a granola bar before I moved in the morning. And then we would sit on the couch and eat graham crackers and watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. And I did all the things that I had learned with the pregnancy with him, and God just made it so it was not nearly as intense. That was all God, because the third pregnancy still had a bunch of issues, had to be on Zofran and all that kind of stuff. But for my daughter, the middle one, it was so much easier. And I felt like that was God saying, it's okay. You can still be a mom. I got this.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Just looked a little different than you might have wanted it to, but at least you were able to.
Exactly. And he doesn't remember any of it. And if he did, it would probably be watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Yeah. All right. Great. That's neat. So let's talk for just a minute, because most of my listeners will not be dealing with HG.
Absolutely.
Thankfully. There may be some listening that will have that sick feeling that's worse than morning sickness that turns into HG, and I want them to know to look for that. But for most of my listeners, they'll probably deal with some form of morning sickness at some point during their pregnancy. And so you've done some research about that as well.
I have.
I mentioned at the beginning that you make these nausea care bags for the Pregnancy Support Center in our town. And just tell me a little bit about that. What goes into those, and why did you pick those
Sure.
things?
Well, first of all, I was like, well, I know my pregnancies were crazy. So the same stuff that helped me, will that help other people? And basically, because HG is just way intense morning sickness, yes. A lot of the things that I found out to do, and they've done a lot more research just on morning sickness in general, even since my first pregnancy when I did my research. And it was kind of cool actually to see, oh, that matches up. So a lot of the things that you want to focus on is what any doctor or midwife or nurse will tell you is eat a lot of very, very small meals.
Okay.
And the more intentionally nauseous you are, the smaller the meal and the more frequent that you try to keep drinking things constantly, eating things constantly. One of the things that I have in the nausea care bags is usually hard candies.
Okay.
Either mints or lemon drops, because mint and lavender and ginger and lemon are all known to help with nausea and to help with morning sickness particularly, but also nausea. So I would recommend to have a water bottle with whatever kind of fluid that you can get down the most easily on you at all times, and hard candies and little bits of food. Also, like I said, with my daughter, I kept granola bars or crackers or something on my nightstand. And then I would take one of those in the morning and eat them. So I'll usually try to put graham crackers or granola bars or something like that in the nausea bags. And then also, when it's hard to get down, plain water or plain juice, it really can help if it's carbonated in some way. So that could be like the Izzy drinks or ginger ale or something like that. And if you're super nauseous, you want to have a lot smaller sips, like a straw. So the weird thing about nausea with morning sickness that's not like a stomach flu is that you can eat the strangest things, and the strangest things sound good. And I really do think that a piece of that is because our body's telling us to try something totally different than what we've been eating. So one thing that I think would help with morning sickness, I don't know this for sure, but I know it helped me with HG, is do try to change the taste of the next thing that you're eating. If you're eating something sweet, try to eat something spicy next, or sour, or salty. And same thing with textures. That could help. If you can't get things down, try to eat something totally different than what you just had. And just a small bit of it. Like, you have to change your brain to be like, okay, this is what I'm accomplishing today. I am staying alive and eating little bits of things. And, oh, I got this down and I kept it down. And I'm staying here and I'm not getting up and doing anything until I know for sure that this is down and done. So changing your expectations can help too.
Okay. Yeah, I know when I experienced some forms of morning sickness with my pregnancies, I called it staying on top of the hunger. Like not letting myself get to that hungry place, because if I did, then it was so much harder to get out of it. So like you were saying, eating the granola bar before you move out of bed in the morning, that type of thing. I always kept some almonds or crackers or something in my purse so that if I even started to think I might be hungry, I could just grab one out and munch on it. And that was helpful.
Absolutely. When you're not hungry.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that we haven't touched on today that you would like to share with us?
I don't think so. I think I did that. I think the biggest thing is a lot of times God puts things in your life where you just have to change your perspective. And it's a season. And you have to remember it's a season. And when you know it's a season, it's so much easier to get through. And then you can see the little bits of light where God can be like, oh, look, I got you through this day. You could stand up and speak at your sister's wedding when you were intensely sick the day before and after and that morning and that afternoon and all that. And it's just a season that you have to get through as well as you can. And God will be there for it, even if it's crazy.
That's great. Well, thank you, Charity, so much for coming in and sharing bits of your story and talking to us about HG and morning sickness. I think this will be very beneficial and helpful to my listeners. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Charity today and learned a few things in the process. It was definitely a timely conversation for me. I was on a call just this morning catching up with a friend who I hadn't talked to in several months, and she told me that she'd been suffering from HG. This conversation with Charity helped me to better understand the severity of what my friend had just been through. Thankfully, in her case, the HG led up around 20 weeks, but the trial is still very fresh for her as her baby hasn't even been born yet. She told me about wanting to blame everyone, herself, her husband, even God. Finally, she said she realized that this trial had come to her by God's hand, and she realized that if she was going to get through it, she had to hold on to Him. That's not an easy thing to do, but I was so encouraged to hear that she had chosen to fight for faith and lean into the goodness of God's character, even when her circumstances didn't feel good. I've included some links in the show notes if you want more information about HG or morning sickness. If you found the podcast helpful, please share it with a friend, and I'd love for you to leave a rating and review. I'll be back in 2 weeks this time to talk about the importance of movement throughout labor. It's my prayer that these podcasts will help you grow in confidence and peace as the day draws near for you to meet your little one. I'm so glad you tuned in today as you are preparing for childbirth.